everybody, and welcome to the From Hurt to Healed series. I'm so thankful to have C coming on with me today. She's going to just dive into her testimony. We have a mutual friend who introduced us and said, hey, I have a friend who has a really great testimony. She has a story to tell. I think she would be awesome in the Hurt to Healed series. And you guys, it takes so much courage and boldness to be able to come on here and share your testimony with other people and, let them into your personal story. And so, C, I just want to start by saying thank you so much for coming onto this series. I'm excited for you to dive in and tell us your story.
Yes. So first and foremost, thank you for having me. I think that this series is definitely going to touch a lot of people in terms of, what they're trying to accomplish and how they want to, build their relationship with God. And I'm so thankful that you're actually, listening to God and what he wants you to do with, how he wants to reach his people, especially during this time with COVID and,
Right.
people have lost ones and or lost loved ones. And I think that it's super important for people to try to learn different tactics, hear other people's stories, and discover themselves and how they can go from their hurt stage to their healed stage. So I'm super thankful for that. So I guess I'll go ahead and dive right in. So as Ashley had mentioned, I'm C. So hello, everybody. I'm the one thing that I can say is that, the Lord has definitely blessed me with I'm trying to overcome a lot of obstacles. I have struggled for years with depression, anxiety, and trust issues based on what I was dealing with as a young girl. So when I was growing up, I went through different phases of abuse. So, first it was sexual abuse, then it was verbal abuse, then it was physical abuse, and I dealt with years of that. From close people to me. So that developed into trust issues because if people who are supposed to be close to me and people who I'm supposed to trust are doing this, how can I trust anyone else outside the home or trust God because of the fact that this has happened to me on several occasions for years. So being that I went through all of those different struggles with abuse, the only thing that I felt that I could possibly do to try to get over it or make myself better or make myself feel better was to like show them that I'm bigger than what they thought I was going to be. With the verbal abuse, I was told that I was ugly, that I was fat, that I was never going to accomplish anything, that I was never going to be more than I was, which was nothing. I made sure that I forced myself to get astounding grades. Like I was an A student throughout all of my schooling. I made sure that once I got out of school, high school rather, I went to college, made sure that I, reached every potential I could reach there, made sure that I was a part of every organization that I could be a part of. And then after college, I went to grad school, did the same thing there. Once I graduated from grad school, had top of the line jobs, make sure that I was like in the best positions, made the most money. And even though all of those things were happening, I was blessed enough to be able to accomplish those things, I was still unfulfilled because of the fact that I didn't address the issues that were bothering me. Not only did I not address it with that person that was the abuser on whatever level it was, I didn't address them with God either. So in each role that I was in, meaning occupation, because I have over 10 years of corporate America experience and various positions, even though, again, like somebody would say, like, for instance, one of my close friends, she would say, well, you're making a lot of money. You're making over six figures. Why aren't you happy? And again, a lot of people that were my age, 27 years old, living in New York City, able to have their own apartment. A lot of people in their 20s are not able to afford their own apartment in New York City. I was still just very, very unhappy. And I thought it was a job. So I would go from job to job. Like I would spend probably like 4 years at that job. Okay, I'm not satisfied here. I don't think that they're really giving me what I'm supposed to have, or I don't think that they are acknowledging the fact that I have the skill set. So I'm thinking it's them and it's actually me.
Mm.
And I would just, spend the 4 years there, go to another job, spend 3 to 4 years there, go to another job. And it wasn't until the last job where I'm just like, here I go again. And another job, here's the 10th year of my corporate America experience. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, this is not what I'm trying to accomplish, and I'm doing all the right things. What's the problem? So in this particular job, we had downtime, and during the downtime moments, I hope none of them are watching, but I'm no longer there, so it doesn't even matter. During that downtime, I would journal on my laptop, and I didn't save it, so they didn't see it, but I would journal, and just journal, and I would, basically show myself how I'm feeling. And journaling was never like something that I wanted to do, but because I wanted to pass the time, like for instance, it was a startup firm, or it was actually a startup environment. So being that, if I accomplished one task and I knew I didn't have a call until maybe 2 hours later, I would just spend those 2 hours just journaling and just writing down like how I'm feeling for the day. And then eventually those journaling or those passages were turned into prayers. And then I would notice that in the prayer, it seemed like God was answering me in the prayer how I was feeling. So I was like, oh, okay, well, let's keep doing it. And I would just do it daily, on a daily basis. And then in this particular job, I noticed that we were having some budget issues. So, I would just talk to God like, hey, like, what's going on? Like, I don't, I get here and it seems like you wanted me to be here, like what's happening. And then that the Thursday before that Monday when I was laid off, God told me, you're going to lose your job. So I'm like, oh my God, like, I'm sitting there panicking, because again, this is something that I think this is supposed to make me feel like I put all of my energy into my career, because I thought that accomplishments would make me feel better, when in essence it didn't. And if I'm going to lose what I thought made me feel the most, like better, I'm just panicking, like, what am I supposed to do? How am I going to pay bills? And, even though God told me, like, you're going to lose your job, but you're going to be okay. I'm like, do you see that I still live in the New York metropolitan area now? Like,
Hello?
it's cheap. Okay. Yeah. Hello. So, but push come to shove, Monday, I walked in at 8 o'clock, and the boss never came to my desk that early. And he's like, yeah, he sat down next to me and he was like, we're going to have to let you go. And I was like, I laughed, because I already knew it was coming. I just didn't know it was coming that early. And I'm pretty sure he was just like, seriously, you're laughing at me? I just told you lost your job and you're laughing. So I was like, okay, whatever. Did all the logistics of that. But I went home and I was like really like sobbing to myself. Luckily, after everything was done, the boss asked me, if you want to finish today, you can finish today, or you can leave now. I said, what am I finishing the day for? I packed up that laptop and I handed it right to him. So it was like still during the day, and early in the morning. So I left the office at like 10. So I'm walking to the train. On the train, I'm like bawling. On the walk home from the train, I didn't feel like, taking like the shuttle, because my apartment has a shuttle from the train to our apartment. I didn't feel like taking the shuttle. I just wanted to walk. And I was just sitting there and I was praying to God, like, what am I going to do now? And all I heard was trust in me, because I told you it was going to be okay on Thursday when you lost your job. So like, okay, fine. So again, still not really addressing the issues that were deep rooted, such as the anxiety, the depression, and the trust issues. I'm still trying to figure things out. Like, what am I going to do? Like, okay, maybe if I just tell my apartment that I need to move because of something else, like they can break my lease and I can go home and I don't have to like dig into my savings to pay bills. I'm gonna be, da 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 da. And like, it wasn't until I had talked to our mutual friend about what I was dealing with. She was just like, have you even talked to God about all of this? Like, it doesn't even make any sense for you to go back to the place where you left from because you wanted to escape, to go back into that and then, haven't addressed it with God. So I'm like, but you don't understand. Like, I have bills and I have this, and I never had, not been without a job, and it's just crazy. And she's just like, well, I understand that it's chaotic, but at the same time, like, if that's not what God wants you to do, like, if this is a part of the plan of what He has for you, He's going to take care of every step of the way, regardless of you not being employed or not. I was like, okay, fine. And then I just went back to what I've been doing the whole time when I was, in times of rest at work, I would sit there and I was like, okay, well, maybe I should just go ahead and just do the journal. And then obviously this is when like COVID hit and you couldn't do anything. So I was already in isolation as it was. So I'm like, okay, let me just go ahead and start journaling. So during the whole time of Lent, or fasting, I had just gave up a whole bunch of stuff. I gave up stuff that I like the most. I love sweet stuff, so I gave up sweets. I gave up alcohol. I gave up fried food. I gave up sex. I gave up men. Like, and I mean, not like, not like being in the company of men. I just wanted to be in a position to just, sit and just talk to God and try to figure things out. And I challenged myself to write in my journal for those 40 days and 40 nights. So every time I wake up, I would start out with, okay, this is how I'm feeling. And then look in the Bible on certain verses that addressed how I was feeling. And then I would just be in prayer for the rest of the journal. So I would probably spend 2 hours a day in journaling on how I felt. And then it wasn't until I would go back and reread it that I would see that I was actually depressed. Like, you see those commercials where people hold up the little happy sign to their face, and it's like, you think that you're happy, but you're not. And, I was just lying to myself thinking that I was okay when I wasn't, because I didn't address all those deep down issues that I needed to get off of me before I could even walk into the promised land that God had for me. And regardless of the fact that I had lost my position, I can definitely say that God has provided so much provision for me. Like, no bill has been not paid. Yeah. I'm not evicted. I'm still in my apartment. I haven't had a starving moment. Like, I've been taken care of, like as if I was working. And then within that time, I was also trying to figure out what I wanted to do for myself. There has been many times, especially during this time, where I had asked God, like, who am I? Like, what do you want me to do? What is my purpose? Because I don't feel like me, going to work 9 to 5, doing all of these strenuous jobs, being stressed out, hair falling out, either going up or losing weight because of whatever is going on. I was like, I don't think that this is what you want me to do. And one of my skills has always been learning how to sew. So I'm like, okay, well, let me see if I can transform that into something. And the good thing was, the Lord gave me a vision for that. And I was able to go into entrepreneurship during the time that I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with my time. So I'm really prayerful, and I'm thankful for the fact that I was able to form a business out of all of the stuff that I was going through with my jobs. And to be honest, I don't think that I would ever want to go back to dealing with the rat race of corporate America. I would just rather just work for myself and just move on. But yeah, so back to all of the issues of being hurt and things like that. I just felt like throughout all of this time, God has revealed to me how good he is and how his hand has been on my life throughout everything. And I can't sit here and say that, he hasn't been there, because he has been. And I'm just so thankful that at this point in time, regardless of everything that I've gone through, I can say that God is still good, and he's still good to me.
Right.
I can start crying.
Man, God is so good. I mean, there's so many pieces of your story that I can just kind of glean like little nuggets from. So I'm so thankful for you sharing this. And I really pray that our audience is receiving what it is that you're putting down and the things that you're saying, because it's so important. I think one of the big things that I was thinking about was isolation. Like, many of us are in isolation right now. And so I was like, man, it's crazy how a lot of times before Jesus went out and did miracles, or before these life-changing moments, he would steal away and he would isolate himself and he would pray, because it just goes to show biblically how isolation, how he used that time to strengthen his relationship with his father. Like, and that's exactly what you did. You were in an isolated season and you used that time to strengthen your relationship with God. And it just kind of goes to show that God can use seasons of isolation for your preparation for what it is he has next. So God, oftentimes he's like, look, I have a plan for you. If you just trust me, that verse that he says in Jeremiah for I know the plans that I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you. God means that. Like, he's like, look, I take my words to heart. My words will not return void. So I mean that. I have something for you. And I think that that goes to show that, like, we plan, but sometimes God unplans so that he can get us on his plan for our lives. So, I mean, see, if that's incredible. If you can just kind of share with someone who's like, oh, I'm going through that right now. Like, I've been through abuse, I've been through emotional abuse, verbal abuse, and they're kind of at that stage right now where they're trying to figure out, okay, how can I overcome this? How can I heal from this? You said that you did journaling. If is there any pieces of wisdom or nuggets that you would give that individual right now, saying, I've been through abuse and I'm still really dealing with it, and I'm not sure, what to do now. Like, I think I want a close relationship with God. What would you kind of suggest for that individual?
Well, the one thing that I would suggest is to make sure that whatever you feel will hit you the most, and when I say hit you the most, I mean what will fill you up or make you feel like you received some type of like progression towards your healing. So, for instance, I know that journaling is not for everybody. Look, it took me a long time to even figure out that journaling even worked. Like, I would do it for 2 days and it'd be like, all right, that's it. But like, I feel like if you think that journaling is not going to be for you, maybe look at other avenues on that things that may actually do something. Like, for some people, like, it may be just prayer and worship. For some people, it may be just listening to gospel. For some people, it may be actually just seeking counseling. For some people, it may just be talking to a friend. I think that just talking it out, like, that was another thing that I struggled with, because I'm a very private person. I don't really share a lot. So like, when you when you asked me to come on here, like, I was kind of hesitant, because I'm like, like, I really don't, a lot of my friends don't really know, like, even friends don't even know like the full story of what makes CC and why I operate the way that I do, because of the fact that I'm very private. But I felt like, in some instances, when I was able to explain certain reasons why things are the way that they are about me, or like telling someone why, um, I may do certain things a certain way, or, this is what actually happened. Like, I'm struggling with this because this happened to me. I think actually voicing it and telling someone that you trust, obviously, if you don't trust that person and they're going to run the street with your information and just put everything out, like, obviously don't tell them. But like, if you trust someone, then, talk to them and help them try to walk you through the steps and processes on how you can actually get to a point where you feel that you're not content, but at least in a relaxed state now. Like, you can just breathe and then, figure out how to go about the rest of your phases of healing. But I think that, a lot of things helped me. Obviously, it started with journaling. It started with the talking to other people. Like, it comes with different phases, and I feel like depending on who the person is, like, I just think that they should explore different ways or different avenues on how to heal. And then, go to Google University. Like, Google University has so many things on there, so many resources that can help you on trying to get over any type of hurdles on life. Now, I'm not saying that you should just go in there and just Google anything, but like, I would say stick to the Christian principles. Like, if there's anything, for instance, if you're struggling with anxiety, Google different verses on anxiety. If you're struggling with the depression, do the same thing with that. If you're struggling with anything, like, all the verses that attack us as human beings are in the Bible, and you can go ahead and research all those different things. But if it's not biblical, again, they are different therapy databases that you can go on to see if you can find someone in your location, or even if you want to do it virtually. There's so many resources out there on Google University where you can find different things for that.
That's so true. And speaking of therapy, I think therapy is incredible. I think that more people should be open to the idea of therapy, and there shouldn't be such a stigma on, oh, I'm going to therapy because I'm so broken that I need, therapy. But I think that there can be so many positive aspects of it, and I want to take away the negative stigmatism surrounding it. And so, Women Becoming Whole is a great Christian website that does virtual therapy sessions, and they really work with kind of everybody's budget. And that's why I love them so much, is because they really take the Christian stance on, we want to provide you with what you need, and we can work with the financial aspects of it, to meet you where you are, kind of. And so, wow, I think that's really good advice. See, I appreciate that so much. I think that people can really learn a lot from you, and kind of just your journey and your growth. You said it, a lot of these things that have happened are new, like to 2020 or at the end of 2019. And I think, like, even hearing for your growth from the end of last year to now, it's just like, wow, like, God can do some incredible things if you give him, like, if you are giving of yourself to him. If you're just like, okay, God, I'm going to give you all of me. God is like, that's what I've been waiting on. Like, I've had pieces of you. I had partial, I've had partial custody of you, but it's been a constant battle in between me and the world. And God's like, hey, I'm thankful that finally I've gotten full custody. I have won my child back.
Right.
And I think that's kind of how he views this battle that he's in. And I think he's starting to get a lot more people's attention, because of COVID-19, because a lot more people are in seasons of isolation. And so I'm thankful for you sharing and kind of walking us through your story and where you're at. And hold on right now, because this cat is making some noise.
Okay.
All right. Thanks. Hey, trying to do an interview here. All right. Video editor. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Okay. But yeah, so I'm excited for where the Lord is going to take you in your entrepreneurship journey. Just seeing what he did in the last 6 to 8 months. Like, I'm like, hey, God's got a plan for C, and that thing's getting ready to unfold like never before. Like, this is just the beginning. And so I have one more question for you though, C. If you don't mind. Okay. I want to be, like, cautious of people's time, but I do want to ask, like, okay, so what was your relationship with the Lord like prior to this? Like, did you grow up in church? Did you know him? Like, how was it before this? And was the job really that light turning on moment for you, or was it something else?
So I've always grown up in the church. So, or always been in the church rather. I grew up in the church and always been in the church. I tied those things together. It sounded so awkward when I said it. So I apologize for that. But so my grandmother was heavily involved in the church, and obviously when my father had me, it was like, and so are you. So I was a part of every youth group. I was in the Girl Scouts. I was in the junior choir. I was in the ushers, the junior usher board. I was doing everything. Like, I was in church all the time. So it wasn't that I didn't have Christian principles in me. It was just that I didn't exercise them. So I felt like, because of the fact of how I was dealing with the childhood trauma, I thought that I had to be by myself, and I could only do things by myself because I can't rely on anyone else. So because of the fact that I had that thought process, I thought that God was in the same boat, that, okay, well, you just going to figure it out and that's it. And it wasn't until, like, because how the Bible says, where, your treasure is your heart is also. My treasure was in my job. My treasure was in making money and doing all those things. And once that was snatched out, it was like, oh, so now you see where all of your attention was. Now you need to pay attention to me, because I'm the one that's going to be able to take care of it. And I told you that you're going to be okay. And if you don't trust in me, and if you do your own thing by going back home, you're not going to receive the provision that I have for you, which is exactly what happened. So I think that once, I did all the journaling and the prayer, and all of that came into a light bulb moment for me, because I was like, oh, okay, now it all makes sense. Now it's just like, okay, all right, you did it how you wanted to do it all this time. Like, I let you do it. I let you go ahead and do your thing. I let you go ahead and be the prodigal son, and, go on, and exactly what happened. So I ended up coming back and saying, okay, Lord, like, all right, I don't want to do this by myself anymore. I don't want to do this on my own. Like, tell me what I need to do. And then because of all of that, and me seeing the journey of how I've come to trust him and rely on God, like, I don't do anything without him anymore. I don't, if God says don't do it, I'm not going to do it.
Right.
And that's it. So, like, and and even, I mean, I've had slip ups. I'm human. I'm imperfect. I'm not going to sit here and say, I'm a starch Christian. I'm throwing Bibles at people's feet. I'm doing like, that's not that's not me. I'm still trying to get myself together. But I have my moments where I slip up, and then if I go and do a journaling, and guys like, so
what happened?
yeah, exactly. I told you what I told you. Now fix it and stop doing what you want to do. So I just feel like, I think throughout the whole process, I've learned that you can't just do church and that's it. And that's what I was doing. Like all I was doing was just church, and I wasn't having a firm foundation in God and having my own relationship with Him where I pray, when I get up and before I go to bed. When, if I feel like I still haven't had enough, then I go and journal, or like, because nowadays, like, even if I'm like, feeling some type of way, I'm like, all right, I need to go and pray. So I'll go in, in my little prayer closet and do what I need to do, and then, be okay. But I was not doing that before. So I think that now, instead of just playing church and just hearing everything that they say, like actually put it into action, like watching, because I also watch different sermons and, learn all of the different things from those as well. So like, instead of just hearing it one ear, not the other, like write it down, make it plain, and then actually do what these, what God has placed on earth to do, like these different pastors and prophets, people that you believe in, obviously, not just some random person on the street, but like, just putting everything that you've learned into practice.
Right. Oh, the big thing that I heard when you were just talking was acknowledgement. Like, see, you really learned how to acknowledge the Lord, through everything. You're like, hey, every single day I'm going to spend time acknowledging God for what it is that you're doing in my life, where it is that I am right now, how it is that I'm feeling. I'm going to continuously acknowledge you in your presence in my life. And I think what that does is that just kind of open up the gate, like that opens up the spiritual gateways for you to clearly hear and discern the voice of God. When you're constantly acknowledging God and you're, inviting His presence into your life on a consistent basis, you know what I'm saying? It's so much different than, like you were saying, like when we're younger. Like I had the very same experience. Like I was a person who grew up in church. My grandpa ran a church, but it wasn't until I went to college, for me, when I started to really acknowledge God for myself. And, I no longer needed to have, my parents or anyone else, kind of spoon feed me the word, or I no longer had like a secondhand relationship with God, but I walked into a relationship willingly and openly myself. And that's when the most work started happening on the inside of me. So if you're hearing this and you're like, hey, I've done that church thing before, but you never really spent time acknowledging God for who He is in your life, then I want you maybe to start with that. Start with acknowledgement. Start with inviting Him into your space. I know sometimes a lot of people say, like when they first started praying, like, oh, prayer is awkward. I don't know what to say. You know what I'm saying? Or I feel like I'm just talking to myself in the empty room. Trust me, God is there. He's always there. He said in the word that He'll never leave you nor forsake you. So that means that at all times, you can go to your Heavenly Father at any time. He's available 24/7. You have access to Him. So I think, like, what would you suggest for somebody who's like, I don't know how to pray? Like, I grew up in church, but I still feel awkward praying, what would you say?
Well, I mean, I was awkward in that space as well. Like, I would just do those God is great, God is good prayers in the beginning. But I think that once you start trying to build that rapport with God, you're in the word and things like that, like you actually learn how to pray. And I think that the journaling aspect helped me because I saw where the issues were. So I was able to read it back and then I could pray over that. Like whatever was spoken to me, either in the prayer portion of my journaling or the how I felt part of my journaling, I just went back and that's how I learned how to pray. Like whenever there was a particular issue that I was dealing with, that's all it is. Like you just presenting all your requests to God, like, help me in this area, help me figure this out. Yes, I don't believe, but help me with my unbelief. Like things like that, are the things that help me because again, Like, I just feel like when people are unsure of what they need to pray for, of course, they're going to think that they're doing fluffy prayers. But even those fluffy prayers, God is happy with the fact that you're even saying something at all. So, like, just because, you're not like the elder in the church that is speaking in tongues at this moment doesn't mean that prayer doesn't count. So, I think that it's a growing process. Like, it says in the Bible, going from milk to meat. So, like, if you're on milk right now, doesn't mean that you're never going to get there. I just think you just need to go through your journey and to figure out, like, what are the issues that you really need to pray for. And then on top of that, it doesn't even have to be like, oh Lord, it doesn't have to be like that. Like, I talk to God like he the homie. Like, look, this is what's going on, and I'm just trying to figure it out. Like, and that's it.
And I think God appreciates those raw and transparent prayers where you're just like, Lord, this is it. Like, this is me. This is kind of where I am. I'm struggling with X, Y, and Z. I have, anxiety, depression, whatever it is. I do believe like you don't have to go to him in a very specific way for him to hear you. And I think that needs to be kind of just debunked. Like, you don't have to go, you know what I'm saying, wrapped in sackcloth and laying on the floor. You know what I'm saying? It's that's not required. God definitely is a God who understands and who can meet you where you are. So if you just need to say it out loud and just speak it, it may be uncomfortable at first, but like C was saying, like, he's going to appreciate the effort that he sees you putting forth. And even just that effort, genuine effort. God knows when our effort is genuine. So when you're putting forth that genuine effort, he's gonna be like, okay, I see you trying, and he's going to pour out his spirit on you even more for putting forth that effort. So we'll see. Any lasting words of wisdom, lasting little gems or lessons that you learned, anything that you'd like to say?
Yes, so I have found a couple of passages on Instagram. This is from Truth is TV on Instagram. So they have two things. First, for anyone who's dealing with anxiety, depression, or what have you, the Bible says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests, be made known to God." And that comes from Philippians 4:6. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing that I wanted to read was a prayer. Mm-hmm. So it says, "Dear God, I come before you to lay my panic and anxiety at your feet. When I'm crushed by my fears and worries, remind me of your power and your grace. Fill me with your peace as I trust in you and you alone. I know I can't beat this on my own, but I also know that I have you, Lord, and you have already paid the ultimate price to carry my burdens. For this, I am thankful. Amen."
Amen. Wow. Well, thank you again, C, so much for coming on, for being transparent, for being open and honest. And I really pray that people who are going through something similar, and even if they're not, like, there's so many other things you can glean from this conversation. I just pray, that their hearts are open to receiving what it is that the Lord wants them to learn through your open transparency today and through your story. So thank you again for coming on. I appreciate you, girl.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Yes. Well, all right, you guys. This is Ashley with the Hurt to Heal series. I'll see you next time.